When we factor, we're going to do the like little cross thing, right? The little cross thing, you like my hands here. And we are going to find out what multiplies to be the last number, right? What multiplies to be 18 and what adds to be 11. So we want it to multiply to be this number and add to be this number. So what adds to be 11 and multiplies to be 18? 9 and 2? 9 times 2 is 18, and 9 plus 2, yeah, that's it. And then I have to write it this way, x plus 9 times x plus 2. And that's it, done, finished, finito. Yes, Ketlin?
Wait, does it have to be x plus 2? I mean, like the way how you said, or it can be like just any way?
You mean I could, or I could write it this way as x plus 2 times x plus 9. Either way is correct. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, I was just making sure.
Yeah, because remember, it doesn't matter what order you multiply things in, right? 2 times 3 is the same as 3 times 2, and that's multiplication, so it doesn't matter which way you put it. Okay? All right. Okay, so the next one says, give me two numbers that multiply to be negative 24 and add to be 10. Oh, I think I know this one. 12 and negative 2. So that means this factors to be x plus 12 times x minus 2. Questions? We okay with that, ladies? You guys good? Okay, and then, oh, sorry, I forget that it's smaller on the smartboard than it is on the computer, so you just have to remind me and I'll make it bigger, okay? And then for the last, number 3, the last one, number 3, I need two numbers that multiply to be negative 33 and add to be 8. Oh, there's only two numbers that multiply to be 33. That would be 11 and 3. And it's a positive 8, so it should be negative 3. 8, 11, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, that's it. Sorry. Oh, my Lanta. X plus 11 times x minus 3. My math skills are working in overdrive today, you guys. Any questions so far?
Oh, okay.
We good, Kellen?
Yeah, I was like, how does 11 add to 8? And then I saw negative 3 and I was like, oh.
Because I subtracted. Okay. All right. Number 4. So let's see. I need two numbers that multiply to be 10 and add to be negative 7. Well, if this number's positive, I know they're either both positive or both negative. And since this one's negative, I know that they're both going to be negative. So that should be negative 5 and negative 2. X minus 5 times x minus 2. Woo. That green, is that green still hard to see, or is it okay? It's okay? Is it like that because you can't see, or because of the color?
The color.
The color, okay. I keep trying to make it darker. Every day I'm making it darker and it still doesn't seem to work. Okay, because I saw you go like this, Jasmine. Okay, number 5 is going to be, let's see. Let's just go to this color because it's still hard to see. Multiply to be 72 and add to be 17. Oh, this one's not too bad. 72 is, what, 9 and 8? So x plus 9, x plus 8. And then numero 60, no, I'm kidding. Number 6, I need two numbers that multiply to be negative 56, and add to be negative 1, because there's nothing with the x, so it's negative 1. And I think 57 and 8, I'm pretty sure. And I want it to be a negative, so that bigger number's negative. So I've got x plus 7 times x minus 8. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, any questions on factoring? Okay, so it looks like, by the way, I looked at Delta Math this morning. Some of you still need to finish that assignment, so you need to make sure you get that done. We'll have time to work on it in class today, as well as the assignment that we're doing today. They're very similar. Okay, you guys? Very, very similar. Because what we're doing today is we're solving by factoring. So now we're just gonna take it one step further. So we're gonna factor, and we're gonna factor the same exact way that we've been doing, just like this. With the little x, we're gonna put it into the 2 parentheses, and then we're actually gonna solve for x. So we're gonna find out what x equals this time. And there's a little rule that we use, and it's called the principle of zero products. And what that says, it says if I have a times b, and that equals 0, right? I have 2 things multiplied together that equals 0. So I should put a little if in front of there. If a times b equals 0, then, should it be then? No, it's then. Then either a equals 0 or b equals 0, right? So I'll give you a second and then I'll talk about it. So basically, if I have 2 things multiplied together and they equal 0, one of those things has to be 0, right? The only way I get 0 when I multiply is if I multiply by 0. So if I have 2 things, I multiply them together, they equal 0, one of them has to be 0. And that's what the the principle of zero product says. If it equals 0, I have 2 things multiplied together equals 0, one of those things equals 0. So if I look at this number, this first one here, I have 2 things multiplied together, right? I have x plus 3 times, because the parentheses are touching, it means times, x minus 5. So I have 2 things multiplied together, and they happen to equal 0, right? Okay, that means that either x plus 3 equals 0 or x minus 5 equals 0. This is how I'm going to solve it. It's really hard. Now it's a one-step equation. How do I take this first equation here, x plus 3 equals 0, how do I solve for that? What do I do? Anybody? How do I get the x by itself?
Divide.
Huh?
Divide.
It says x plus 3 equals 0.
Oh.
Take away 3.
Take away 3. That's beautiful. Yes, I think someone just checked in. Jasmine E. So I'm going to take away 3 because I'm adding 3, so I'm going to subtract 3, right? So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides, and I get x equals negative 3. Now I'm going to go to the second equation, and I'm going to solve for that one. This one says x minus 5 equals 0. What am I going to do on this one?
X plus 5.
I'm going to add 5, right? Because it says minus, I'm going to do the opposite. So I'm going to add 5. So x equals 5. So I have 2 answers. I have x equals negative 3 or 5. Notice there's no parentheses around here because this is not a point. These are just x values. So it's just negative 3 comma 5. That's it, done. Okay. So notice number 2 is already in factored form again. trying to make it so you guys can see it and in here. Because if I look on my iPad, that is not all on my iPad, so I got to make sure you guys can see it. And I still have enough room to write. Okay, so number 3, I have 2 things multiplied together. Oh, sorry, that is not a 3, that's a number 2. I have 2 things multiplied together. I have this times this. I have 2 things. There's not 2 parentheses, but if I have something touching a parenthesis, that means times, right? So that means I have 3x equals 0, or 2x minus 7 equals 0. So now I have 2 equations again that I have to solve for. So if I take my first equation, what am I going to do? How do I solve for x on that equation? What am I going to do this time? Oh, my Atlanta. Circle. Okay. So how do I solve for 3x equals 0? What am I going to do? It's just one step. So what do I do to solve for it?
Divide.
Divide by. Nice job, Zoe, by the way. I'm going to divide by whatever's with x. In this case is 3. So x is going to equal what? What is 0 divided by 3? Anybody?
0.
0. Very good. So that's my first equation. I don't know why I said it that way. That's so strange. And now we're going to do the second one. Okay, so I need to solve for x. This one's a little more complicated to solve for, but not much. We've done this in class, so I know you guys can do it. What am I going to do to solve for x? What do I do first?
Add 7.
Add 7. Very good, Zoe. Add 7. So I get 2x equals 7. And then I'm going to have to write smaller. Yes, good. Divide by 2. Oh, I don't have to write too much smaller. And x is going to be 7 divided by 2. So I have 2 answers. I want to slide over now. I have x equals 0 and 7/2. Questions? We okay so far? It's not too terribly bad yet. It's not going to get too terribly bad. I'm just going to tell you guys. Okay? I tried to pick problems that wouldn't get too bad. Okay? All right, so let's go down to number 3. Number 3 here. Great. Okay, so this one is not factored. Like 1 and 2 were already factored for us. So on 3 and 4, I have to factor first. So I have to do the factoring, which is what we did in the warm-up, right? And what we did on Tuesday. So we're just gonna factor and see what we get. So let me make myself some room over here. So I need 2 numbers that are gonna multiply to be negative 18 and add to be negative 3. So what multiplies to be negative 18? 2 and 9. I don't think 2 and 9 work. 3, does 3 go into 18? 3 and 6, I think that'll work. Okay, so 3 times 6 is positive 18, so one of them has to be negative. Which one's going to be negative, the 3 or the 6? It needs to add to be -3. So which one's going to be negative? Anybody know which one's going to be negative?
X.
Yes, very good. Because it has to add to be -3. And because this one's negative, the bigger number is negative. Nice. So that means this factors to x plus 3 times x minus 6 equals 0. Now I have two things that multiply together that equals 0. So one of them has to be 0. So that either means that x plus 3 equals 0 or x minus 6 equals 0. So now I'm just going to solve for x. I have two equations. I'm solving for x. So how do I solve this one for x? What am I going to do?
Subtract 3.
Subtract 3. Beautiful. And x equals -3. And what am I going to do to this one?
You're going to add 6.
Add 6. Great. X equals 6. So x is going to equal -3 or 6. Nice, Alex. Good job. Done. Questions? Are you guys okay with that? Okay. The girls are still writing, so I'm going to wait for a second. Ooh. Okay. So number 4. Ooh. Number 4. We're doing exactly the same thing. Exactly. This is what you're going to do on your homework. Everything's going to be exactly the same. So I need two numbers that add to be 16. No, multiply to be 16. Add to be -10. Sorry, I was trying to think about what those two numbers are. What multiplies to be 16 adds to be -10. Oh, I know. I got it. I figured it out. You guys tell me what it is. What multiplies to be 16 adds to be -10.
Q times.
Did he say Q?
Would it be 8 and -2?
Yeah, good.
And then it would be.
-2 and -8. Nice job. So that means it factors to x minus 2 times x minus 8 equals 0. Beautiful. And now I have two things multiplied together that equal 0. One of them has to be 0. So that means that either x minus 2 equals 0 or x minus 8 equals 0. I know, factoring, you have to know your multiplication, right? I know. So if you need, at least if you're in class, and I can put one on Canvas if you actually need it. I have a multiplication table that's like a 20 by 20. So if you need a multiplication table, I can get one for you guys. So what do I need to do to solve this one? What am I going to do to the first equation?
Add 2.
Add 2. Beautiful. And I get x equals 2. And what am I going to do to the second equation?
Add 8.
Is there anyone who doesn't understand why I'm adding here instead of subtracting? Is everyone okay with why I'm adding? Because I'm doing the opposite of whatever this sign is. If this sign would have been add, I would have subtracted. But this sign is a subtract, so I do add. I'm doing whatever the opposite of that sign is. Does that make sense? So this is going to be x equals 8. So my answer is x equals 2 or 8. Whew. 2 answers. Okay? Everyone okay with that so far? We're good? Okay. So now there's 4 questions here. Help start this, sorry. So remember, we want everything to be on the same side, the equal sign. So like for the first one, I would add 8 to both sides of the equal sign. So what I'd be factoring would be x squared minus 10x plus 24 equals 0. So this is what I want it to look like. So I might have to go ahead and do these. If you have a question about one of them, please stop me, you guys too, okay? So, because I will answer your questions, okay? So I'm going to factor this, right? So I need 2 numbers that multiply to be 24 and add to be negative 10. And I think that's negative 6 and negative 4. So that factors to x minus 6 times x minus 4, and that equals 0. So that means that either sorry, I swallowed something wrong. X minus 6 equals 0, or x minus 4 equals 0. And so I'm going to add 6 here, and I'm going to add 4 here. And that means that x either equals 6 or 4. Beautiful. And then for the second problem, I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides, so everything's on the same side. And I get x squared minus 2x plus 0 equals 0. So in this case, I need 2 numbers that multiply to be 0 and add to be negative 2. Well, that's negative 2 and 0. So that factors to x minus 2 times x plus 0 equals 0. So I get either x minus 2 equals 0 or x plus 0 equals 0. So add 2. And then this, subtract 0? Sure, why not? So x equals 2 or 0. Do I need to show, I'm like, do I need to show the other one? But you guys can see it. You know, usually the notes are covered up by your guys' pictures, so I never see what you guys can see on the computer. So I never know what you guys can see, but now I can see it. I always can see I only show what I can see on my smartboard, which is a lot smaller, my iPad, which is a lot smaller area than your computer screens. Imagine that. Can I go ahead and go on to the next problems, you guys? Is that okay? Okay. I'll try and keep them up there so you guys can see those ones too if you need to. So this one I'm going to add 4x and subtract 5. So add 4x, subtract 5. So I get x squared plus 4x minus 5 equals 0. Oh. So I need 2 numbers that are going to multiply to be negative 5 and add to be 4. So I'm pretty sure that's 5 and negative 1. Because the only thing that multiplies to be 5 is 5 and 1. So I've got x plus 5 times x minus 1 equals 0. So let's see. So x plus 5 equals 0, or x minus 1 equals 0. So x is going to equal negative 5 or positive 1. And then the last one, I'm going to add 30 and add 11x. Add 30, add 11x. And I'm going to get x squared plus 11x plus 30 equals 0. So I need two numbers that are going to multiply to be 30 and add to be 11. I think that's 5 and 6. So I get x plus 5 times x plus 6 equals 0. So that means x is going to equal negative 5 and negative 6. Now I want to kind of talk about this. Notice that as I went along, I started taking steps out, right? Do you guys see that? Started taking steps out. Because if you can understand what's happening, do I have to write it out every time? I don't. What's happening? How do I get from, let me do this. How do I get from here to here? What's the difference between my factored form and my answer? Can someone tell me what the difference between my factored form and my answer is? Can you look at the factored form, which is the form that's in the answer? The form that's in the parenthesis and my answer. What's the difference in the numbers? You can look at all of them. That one, these two here. Oh, it's always. These two here. These two here. What's the difference between the numbers in factored form, the numbers that are in the parenthesis, and the numbers that are in my answer? What's the difference? Almost half. If you don't see it, it's okay that you don't see it. You just have to do it. You just have to write all the steps out. But think about that question about what's the difference between the numbers in my factored form and the numbers in my answer. And eventually it's going to come to you and it'll be like, oh, so much easier. Okay, I'm not going to tell you what it is because if you don't understand it, you're not going to get it. Does that make sense? But if you look at it and you look at it and try and see the pattern, there's a pattern to it. And once you understand it, you'll be like, oh, so much easier. Okay? But you have to understand it to be able to get it. Does that make sense? Okay. So we're going to go ahead and go on to the next 4 problems. There's 4 more. I'm going to do 2 of them, and then I'm going to have you do 2 of them. And the difference between them is, oh my gosh, there's something with the x squared. Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to try and get rid of that something with the x squared. Well, it looks like not all of them have something with the x squared, but most of them do. So if I look at number 1, I'm going to try and get, first of all, I want to get everything on the same side as the x, right? Everything on the same side of the equal sign. Wow. Okay, so that means I'm going to add 7x squared to both sides. So if I add 7x squared to this one, it just becomes 7 minus 6, 1. So this is x squared minus 4x minus 21 equals 0. That one was pretty easy because now I just have an x squared, a 1x squared by itself. I can do exactly what we've been doing. So I need 2 numbers that multiply to be negative 21 and add to be negative 4. The only thing that multiplies to be 21 is 7 and 3. So 7 and positive 3. And it needs to add to be a negative 4. So that means the 7 has got to be negative. So this factors to x minus 7 times x plus 3 equals 0. So my answer is, I have two things multiplied together that equal 0. So that means that either x minus 7 equals 0 or x plus 3 equals 0. Okay, now I solve for x, so I'm going to add 7, and I get x equals 7, and I'm going to subtract 3, and x equals negative 3, so x is going to equal 7 comma negative 3. By the way, you can leave it this way. It's just neater to write it this way. Just saying that. Does that make sense? I can write x equals 7 and x equals negative 3. They just usually write it x equals 7 comma negative 3 or negative 3 comma 7, whichever way. Okay? Whew. And then the second one, or number 2, let me just slide it in a little bit, already has the equal sign equaling 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this 3 here, because there's a 3 with my x squared, and I'm going to ask myself, does 3 go into 15 and 18? Well, in this case, it does. It goes into both 15 and 18. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both sides by 3. So that means on the left-hand side, where all the numbers are, that 3 goes into every term. So that means 3 goes into 3 one time, so I get left with x squared. 3 goes into 15 5 times, and 3 goes into 16, oh, sorry, that's an 18 negative 6 times, and 3 goes into 0 0 times. So that's what I end up with. So now I'm right back to what we've been doing. I know how to do this. I need two numbers that multiply to be negative 6 and add to be 5. It's not 2 and 3, because that doesn't add to be 5 if one's negative. So it's got to be negative 6 and negative 1. There we go. So x plus 6 times x minus 1 equals 0. So that means that x plus 6 equals 0 or x minus 1 equals 0. So x is going to equal negative 6 and positive 1. What, Kentlin?
Also, I was talking to Josiah.
Oh, hi, Josiah. Okay, so that's how you do those ones. So we've got 2 problems for you to do. I'm going to leave those 2 up here so you can see them. So I'm going to finish these 2 up, and then we'll start working on your homework. You'll have about 20 minutes to work on homework. That's pretty good, right? So I'm going to add 5 to both sides, and I get x plus 8, x squared plus 8x plus 0 equals 0. Wow, okay. I need 2 numbers that multiply to be 0 and add to be 8. Remember, I'm just going to say this really quick. I didn't say this on the last time. Remember, the number with the x by itself, this number here, is the number we're adding to. The number without the x, which happens to be 0 this time, is what we want to multiply it to be. So I need 2 numbers that are going to multiply to be 0 and add to be 8. Well, that's 8 and 0. So x plus 8 times x plus 0 equals 0. That means x is going to be equal to negative 8 and 0. Whew. And then the last one, if I get everything on the same side, the equal sign, plus 27x plus 18 plus 27x plus 18. So 9x squared plus 27x plus 18 equals 0. So I'm pretty sure 9 goes into everything. So I'm going to divide by 9. Divide both sides by 9. And I'm going to get x squared plus 3x plus 2 equals 0. So give me two numbers that multiply to be 2 and add to be 3. Well, there's only two numbers that multiply to be 2, right? 2 and 1, that one's pretty easy on that one. So x plus 2 times x plus 1 equals 0. So that means x is going to equal -2 and -1. Done. Okay, is there any questions? Awesome sauce. You guys did great today.